Chapter 141. Killing Bear. The three members of the Yu family departed from Mount Lijing and soared high above Moongaze Lake. Dawaiyu Mugo steered through the wind with a grim expression, while the two individuals behind him kept their heads lowered, not daring to utter a single word. It was not until halfway through their journey that the tall, thin man finally mustered a bitter smile and said, "Big brother, it seems clear that the Li family wants no part in this. Is he looking down on us?" Yu Mugo coldly snorted in response. Li Tongya is really cautious. They've made it evident they wish to stay neutral. We can't force them. We can only treat the Li family as if they don't even exist among the Moongaze Lake families and do as we please. But the tall, thin man shook his head, appearing hesitant as he softly continued. The Li family seems strong and newly fortified on all fronts. Both Li Xianfeng and Li Tongya aren't fools. It's hard to predict their future actions. If Li Chaijing gains power, submitting to them might become our only option. Moongaze Lake could become the Li family's territory. I share your concerns. Yu Mugo's expression darkened as he contemplated for a moment. Eventually, he eased slightly and said, "Upon further consideration, breaking through to the Foundation Establishment realm and attaining the Purple Mansion realm is no easy feat. The mortality rate on the southern border is alarmingly high. Li Chaijing might not survive to see the end. Secondly, Li Chaijing has just attained the Foundation Establishment realm. He'll need at least 100 years of preparation to attain the next realm. Whether it's cozying up to Azure Pond Mountain or forming alliances with the other families in the prefecture, there's still time for us to act," he added after further thought. The tall, thin man nodded in agreement with Yu Mugo's careful analysis. Dawaiyu Mugo then suggested with a sinister undertone, "We may not be able to control Li Chaijing, but we can certainly deal with the Li family. Perhaps we should seize the opportunity to discreetly eliminate Li Tongya and Li Xianfeng, or orchestrate some calamities to destabilize them. As long as we're careful enough, they won't be able to defend themselves. By doing so, we secure our own position. Indeed, we should consult with the family head about this plan when we return." With that, the three continued on their journey northward, oblivious to the plotting and scheming of the Yu family. Li Tongya, accompanied by Li Xianfeng, traversed Mount Dali, guided by the fox's intelligence. After journeying hundreds of li eastward from the foot of Mount Dali, they stumbled upon a dark cavern. Before the entrance lay scattered white bones, and a foul, fishy odor wafted outward with each gust of wind. Li Tongya and Li Xianfeng landed before the cave. The deafening snores within abruptly ceased. Li Tongya swept the area with his spiritual sense and chuckled. "What a formidable bear it is." He nodded to Li Xianfeng, who took to the air and stationed himself on the opposite side of the mountain. Li Tongya then unsheathed his sword and sent a few sword chi slicing through the air and into the cavern. Roar. Li Tongya distanced himself from the cave to give himself more space to work with. From within, a behemoth over 3 meters tall burst forth. Its massive form cast a shadow over the forest, its black fur bristling and eyes ablaze with fury. With thunderous footsteps, it lunged forward, swatting at Li Tongya with a colossal palm. The bear was a creature at the 5th heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm, and its horrifying palm was the size of 2 human chests. The size of Li Tongya's sword Qi was akin to a glowing toothpick compared to its massive size. Realizing the futility of a direct confrontation, he swiftly evaded the attack. However, even his retreat was not enough to avoid the full force of the bear's strike. Under the impact, his feet sunk a little into the ground. The next moment, the bear had already swung its palm toward him at high speed with no delay. If it were to connect with Li Tongya, it could either severely injure or worse, kill him. Li Tongya sent a few more sword chi directed toward it as he retreated again, and oh wonder the fox warned me to be cautious. This creature is really massive and formidable indeed. Capturing it alive won't be easy, and engaging with it in battle could risk injury or prove deadly. It might be best to eliminate it first, then capture a smaller demon of Qi cultivation realm to bring home instead. While pondering these, Li Tongya had already been forced 10 steps backward and unleashed a barrage of sword Qi toward the bear. However, the bear easily dissipated the sword Qi effortlessly with its iron-like palm. The creature's strength was formidable, but it was not sluggish like a boar either. It recognized that Li Tongya's sword Qi was dangerous and opted to either disperse his attacks with its mana-infused palms or withdraw to avoid injuries. Meanwhile, Li Tongya refrained from employing sword techniques. Instead, he focused on channeling his sword Qi to wear down the bear's strength steadily. As the two engaged in their fierce exchange, trees collapsed and startled birds circled overhead, uncertain of whether to return to their nests amid the great chaos. Meanwhile, Li Xianfeng, who was stationed nearby, drew his longbow, with an arrow made of ebony or knocked on the bowstring and shimmering with golden light. His keen eyes stayed trained on the bear's every movement as his aura continued growing. With each passing moment, the bear remained fiercely alert, its limbs numbed by the piercing arrow Qi. Despite the discomfort, it rose to its feet, contending with Li Tongya's assault while casting suspicious glances around. It eventually turned its head around, its attention drawn to a distant glimmer of golden light. Before it could react, something had already pierced its chest. While the bear howled in pain, Li Tongya seized the opportunity to strike. With swift precision, he drew his sword and sliced the bear's neck with the celestial moon slash technique. However, the bear reacted with remarkable speed, managing to deflect the blow with its massive PWL. Tongya's sword chi, though formidable, had not yet reached its full potential to harm. It merely left a deep, bloodied gash on the bear's paw. The force of the bear's counterattack pushed Li Tongya backward, dispersing his concentration. Startled and greatly intimidated by the pain, the bear turned and fled, leaving behind a trail of destruction as it trampled through the forest. But before it could get far, Li Xuanfeng's second arrow pierced through the air, striking the bear from behind and lodging itself deep within the great bear's body. The bear bellowed in agony as it dropped to its knees. However, its survival instincts kicked in with full force, propelling it forward once more as it desperately attempted to escape. Li Tongya swiftly struck out with his sword, slicing a bloody chunk of flesh from its hindquarters. The bear let out another pained howl. Realizing that attempting to escape would only lead to its demise, It turned around fiercely to attack Li Tongya. But its movements were slowed tremendously due to its injuries. Li Tongya's agile movements allowed him to easily evade the bear's assault this time. Meanwhile, Li Xuanfeng's arrow found its mark, further weakening the bear until it eventually collapsed to the ground. Succumbing to its injuries, Li Tongya quickly retreated to a safe distance, while waiting for the bear's life force to ebb away slowly. After the time taken for a stick of incense to burn, Li Xianfeng emerged from the woods, still cautious. Be vigilant. Demons are known to feign death. We shouldn't approach it, he warned. I know, Li Tongya replied, nodding approvingly as he looked at the bow in Li Xuanfeng's hand. Your archery skill is quite impressive. Are you utilizing the spiritual orifice in your palm? He asked. Yes, Li Xianfeng cupped his fist and admitted. Scratching his head sheepishly, he said, the bear looked unusually fierce, and I worried that going easy on it would cause you harm. So I used full force in my arrows to swiftly eliminate the threat. I feel very guilty that what was supposed to be our ritual offerings is dead. While Li Xianfeng was feeling somewhat apprehensive about Li Tongya's presence, the elder smiled at him and reassured him. It's fine. I was also thinking of hunting down another demon for the ritual offerings instead. Seems like we're in agreement on this. As soon as Li Tongya finished speaking, the bear suddenly stirred from its position, its eyes glowing bright red with fury as it made a final attempt to strike out at them. However, Li Tongya and Li Xianfeng evaded its attack with ease and prowess, allowing the creature to collapse heavily onto the ground once more. Blood flowed from its wounds like a crimson river, and it seemed to have ceased making any noise that Li Tongya, who had been gathering his sword chi for some time, unleashed a burst of white light that swiftly decapitated the demon. Following this, they hurriedly applied techniques to staunch the bleeding from the demon bear's wounds before quickly performing the spirit sealing technique on it. They dismembered the remains of the bear and then stored them in a storage pouch. They even cleaned up the bloodstains on the ground meticulously before soaring to the sky and flying eastward. Your mastery of the bow is truly remarkable, Fenger. Why not document your techniques in a book? That way, future generations of our clan can benefit from your expertise. As they flew eastward, Li Tongya continued. Chapter 141. Killing bear. As they flew eastward, Li Tongya continued. While our family possesses a variety of spells and techniques, most of them are conventional and lack versatility in combat. The most remarkable one among them is the profound water sword technique. However, not everyone possesses such talent in swordsmanship. If we can introduce another legacy to our family, it would undoubtedly be beneficial. Chapter 142. Appointment. Li Xianfeng nodded after some thought, then added, writing a book shouldn't be a problem, but mastering this bow technique is no easy feat for an ordinary person. Without a spiritual orifice in the hand, it would prove challenging to master such a technique. Even if one manages to do so over years, the power will be significantly diminished and they won't be able to harness the astral chi. My bow technique relies heavily on astral chi. Without it, the arrows will lose most of their power, which can be quite disheartening. Li Xianfeng finished with a tight-lipped smile. Li Tongya frowned slightly, shaking his head in resignation. In that case, perhaps you should document it when you have the time. At least it will serve as a record for future generations of our family. Understood. After landing on Lijing Peak and checking the time, they realized they still had over a day before the agreed-upon meeting with the Yu family. Li Tongya handed over his storage pouch with a bear carcass inside to Li Xianfeng and gave him a set of instructions. Sell these in the prefecture and gather information from the disciples there before returning to report to me. Understood. Li Xianfeng replied eagerly, accepting the storage pouch from Li Tongya and bowing before taking off into the wind and flying eastward. As Li Tongyao watched Li Xianfeng leave, he could not help but smile and mutter to himself. This kid. When Li Xuanfeng's figure disappeared from view, Li Tongyao mused, without an heir for Jing'er, we must keep an eye out for any children with spiritual orifice who could serve as a successor, ensuring that his lineage continues. Li Xianfeng flew along the Guli Road for a while. Having learned from his previous experiences, he flew over the city wall before landing in the town. Despite the urge to meet his woman, he remained focused on the task at hand and headed toward the medicine store operated by the Li family. Upon entering, he found a young man dozing off behind the counter. Li Xianfeng managed to identify him as Li Yexing's son, whom Li Xianxian had sent to oversee the store in the prefecture. He snorted coldly, then nudged the guy awake. The young man lifted his head and rubbed his eyes drowsily before being startled awake. Brother Feng, W.I. Are you? Despite being younger, Li Xianfeng had earned a reputation among the children as a little tyrant, often seen chasing older kids with his bow. And despite being older, the drowsy young man behind the counter addressed him as Brother Feng. Li Xianfeng simply waved dismissively and ignored him. Go fetch Wan Tianqiu for me. The young man hurried out of the courtyard and summoned Wan Tianqiu. Wan Tianqiu emerged promptly, clad in gray clothes. Although his face seemed a lot chubbier and resembled much of how he looked when he was younger, his cultivation had already reached the third stage of the embryonic breathing realm. What can I do for you, young master? He asked respectfully. Ever since Li Tongyao destroyed the Ji family and presented Ji Dongqi's head before him, Wan Tianqiu had lost his aspirations. He eventually married into the Li family, but his cultivation progress had remained stagnant ever since. His wife was an extremely ferocious woman, so he quickly accepted his assignment in the prefecture to avoid her wrath at home. While he was having a good time here, he did not expect to be visited by Li Xianfeng. Good thing I stayed home today, otherwise I would have missed your visit, young master. Facing my wife's wrath upon returning home would have been unbearable. While Wan Tianqiu was pondering the purpose of Li Xuanfeng's visit, the other man spoke up. When will the market on Crown Peak open again? Li Xianfeng asked curtly. It'll reopen after the first lunar month, young master. Wan Tianqiu promptly replied. Got it. Li Xianfeng nodded, then cast a glance at Wan Tianqiu before turning to him to speak. How are you doing in the prefecture? Has anyone caused you any trouble? No, not at all. After hearing that we are from the Li family, the other forces in the prefecture dare not cross us. With assistance from the Xiao family, everything is smooth sailing. Wan Tianqiu assured him with a proud smile. After hearing Wan Tianqiu's report, Li Xianfeng nodded and then bid farewell to the two men before departing. After leaving the medicine store, he skipped his way to a small courtyard and knocked on the door with a smile. Jiang Yinu's soft and alluring voice came from behind the door. Who is it? It's me, Li Xianfeng answered. A series of rapid footsteps approached before the door creaked open, revealing the round-faced girl standing before him. Accompanying her was a swan goose strutting proudly by her side, its head held high with a blank stare fixed on its face. Young master. Li Xianfeng caught the girl who leaped into his arms but kept his eyes on the swan goose. He grinned foolishly, then planted a kiss on her lips before asking, Why didn't you eat it? I feel lonely alone here. This swan goose broke its wing. It just flutters around all day. When I was a child, we raised geese at home, so I decided to keep it as a pet. The girl replied with a jovial laugh. I Xianfeng carried her to the bed, then loosened his clothes while saying, Didn't I tell you to buy a few servants? I looked, but they're too expensive. Besides, I'm used to doing laundry and cooking. I'm not some noble lady, so there's no need for servants. Jiang Yinu responded sheepishly. I Xianfeng kicked away the stern-looking goose that attempted to peck him while fluttering its wings, then used his mana to restrain the animal to the ground. He chuckled and remarked, This goose is really vengeful. After enjoying each other's company between the sheets, Li Xianfeng wiped away the sweat that clung to Jiang Yinu's forehead with a smile. How have you been these days? He asked gently. I've been doing fine, Jiang Yinu replied, pinning up her hair as sweat rolled down her fair neck. Sitting in Li Xuanfeng's lap, she wrapped her arms around his neck, gazing at him with her adorable almond-shaped eyes. I came to the prefecture to take care of some matters. Once I'm done here, I'll need to enter seclusion and focus on my cultivation. I've been stuck at the first heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm for 2 years now. It's time for a breakthrough, Li Xianfeng explained with a small sigh. Jiang Yinu's expression turned downcast as she asked, How long will you be staying this time? A few months at least, a year at most, Li Xianfeng replied, trying to sound as comforting as possible. Jiang Yinu pursed her lips, tracing the unchanged contours of his face over the past year with her fingers. She tried her best to cheer up, but could not disguise the loneliness in her voice as she spoke. You're an immortal. Your cultivation easily takes up years of your life. While I'll be aging over these few years, you'll remain as youthful as you are now. That's really unfair. In 12 years, when I'm 28, I bet you'll probably just give me some money and tell me to live out the rest of my life by myself. What are you talking about? Li Xianfeng chuckled as he embraced the petite and fair girl tenderly. Just wait for a few more years. We'll have a child. I'll take you home and make sure no one looks down on you. he assured her with a soft kiss. Meanwhile, Li Tongya was practicing the River One Qi technique. He exhaled a wisp of white qi, then concluded his training and rose to his feet. The sun was just beginning its ascent into the sky. He estimated what time it was before slinging his sword over his back and stepping out, coincidentally running into Li Xianxian. Second uncle. Li Xianxian cupped his fist and greeted. Now sporting a beard that gave him a mature appearance, it had been nearly a decade since he had overseen the family's affairs, ensuring that things were well within the major and minor sects. Tongya nodded to him and then announced, I'm heading out onto the lake. Keep a close watch here, and don't let anyone through the sun write profound light formation unless absolutely necessary. Understood, second uncle. After giving his instructions, Li Tongya soared into the air and flew northward, crossing over the crystal-clear lake and stopping above the island at the heart of the lake. The island was bustling with activity. A large brown boat was docked on the serene waters, surrounded by a dozen smaller vessels. Mortals stood on these boats, and they were bound with ropes, their expressions blank as they gazed fearfully at the sky, too frightened to utter a word. Number 21. Someone shouted on the large boat. 10 cultivators of the embryonic breathing realm emerged at the stern of the boat, channeling mana into the palm of their hands. Suddenly, the smaller vessel at the end floated upward, eliciting cries of fear from those aboard. Women sobbed, children wailed, and a cacophony of curses filled the air. However, the cultivators remained indifferent, their faces impassive as they watched the boat drift toward the sky above the island at the heart of the lake. With a tilt, the mortals aboard tumbled downward, creating ripples on the surface of the forbidden formation below. Lightning and fire then ensued, detonating spells of light one after another. The screams of the crowd vanished instantly. Blood and severed limbs soared into the air before raining down, dyeing the lake a crimson red. Crocodiles, shrimps, and crabs surged to the lake's surface, greedily seizing the flesh. So, this is what Lu Sisi meant by a venture without any initial investment. Litumya Musha. Chapter 143. Milan Prefecture blood continued to flow over the forbidden formation, and the once lush island that was protected by the formation quickly turned into scorched earth. As the glow of spells faded, a middle-aged, cowering man came into view, clutching his head. His eyes were shut, and he was trembling. This middle-aged man had a huge gash across his waist, and it was bleeding profusely. After a long while, he opened his eyes in disbelief and looked around. Then, with a burst of ecstatic laughter, he hurriedly treated his wound. After rummaging through the ruins for a while, his face turned even paler from his severe blood loss. Unable to search any further, he wrapped the talismans and Dharma artifacts with his clothes before exiting the formation, only to be met by a grumbling cultivator on the shore, who snatched the items he had retrieved. Damn it, these peasants are trickier than the last. If it weren't for the need to cooperate with the ones that follow, who would bother giving them gold? After tossing a bag of gold, they hauled the man onto a small boat that could accommodate about 2 or 3 people. Number 21. Off you go, they shouted as the small boat departed, which was carrying a few lucky ones who survived with only missing limbs. People on several small boats at the rear of the large ship looked on in anticipation, waiting for orders from above. Akatonya observed such diverse fates on the island, waiting a while longer. It was not long before an emaciated elder wielding a jade scepter approached from the east, riding the wind. That was Lu Sisi. Brother Tongya. Lu Sisi cupped his fist and greeted Li Tongya before joining him mid-air. The Yu family mentioned meeting here on the island, but I see none of their kin. From a distance, I only spotted a few minor family heads waiting together in the sky. What does this mean? He asked in confusion. Li Tongya, with a low chuckle, glanced around and pointed toward the distant large ship. Nothing much, just making an example out of some chickens to scare the monkeys. Lu Sisi, understanding this gesture, laughed at the misfortune of the people below them. I see. We've also found these rogue cultivators quite displeasing. But with several Qi cultivators aboard, none of the families wanted to stir trouble. That's why they were allowed to roam free for so long. As they conversed, the large ship suddenly raised its sails in alarm, buzzing with activity. Several figures emerged to encircle the ship from all sides, with a formidable-looking man standing above, completely clothed in black. He appeared to be middle-aged and exuded an overwhelming presence. Lucc counted and then remarked, 9 Qi cultivators. The Yu family really is wealthy. He looked up at the black-clothed man and continued in a somewhat dejected tone. That must be the current head of the Yu family, Yu Xiaogui. We attained the Qi cultivation realm the same year, but he's already a foundation establishment realm cultivator now. I've dealt with him before. He's a sinister and ruthless man, not easy to handle at all. Oh, Li Tongya tutted as he flew closer to the large ship with him. Lucc continued. Yu Xiaogui was the leader of the 5 heroes of the Yu family back in the day. 2 of the 5 have passed away, and of the 3 who reached the peak of Qi cultivation realm and sought breakthroughs, he was the only one who survived. After standing for a moment in the air, the presence of Yu Xiaogui and his group clearly caused unease among the people below. An elderly rogue cultivator flew up with a grim expression before slapping himself twice in the face. He cupped his fist and pleaded with Yu Xiao, "Greetings, head of Yu family. We've ignorantly violated the rules of the lake and caused disturbance. I deeply apologize and am willing to compensate for any losses." This elder was also at the peak of Qi cultivation realm with a clear flow of true essence, indicating consumption of refined, though not top-tier, spiritual Qi. Despite being significantly older, he addressed Yu Xiaogui as a senior with obsequious flattery. Yu Xiaogui came forward with an amiable smile on his face. He lifted his arm, revealing his arm that was as smooth as the jade inside the sleeve of his robe. With a wave of his hand, the elder's head, which was several meters away, immediately burst open like a watermelon. He plummeted to the ship on the lake before he could even have the chance to grunt. This caused a large commotion to break out on the ship. The Qi cultivators from the Yu family immediately swarmed in, and the formation inscribed onto the ship shone brightly. The area immediately became a battlefield with cultivators clashing, causing the lake to churn unpredictably. Bursts of spells exploded on the water surface. The few fortunate ships that had just made their escape capsized amidst the turmoil. The injured and drowned vanished beneath the waves, meeting their inevitable end. As always, just as always. "That's Yu Xiaogui's style," Lu Cixi remarked, shaking his head at the sight of Yu Xiaogui standing with his hands behind his back, finding himself at a loss for words. Unlike Yu Xiaogui, who still looked like a middle-aged man, Lu Cixi had aged significantly, with white hair and limited days ahead. Tonya observed the group while stroking his chin. Noticing their proximity to the ship's cabin, which would have already placed them within the cultivator's spiritual sense, he could not help but speculate out loud. The Yu family must possess some Dharma artifact that conceals their presence. It's quite effective, considering that it could hide them until they were close to the ship, preventing the rogue cultivator from escaping in alarm. As they spoke, the ship turned into a bloody scene of massacre. The smaller boats that were attached capsized, and hundreds of mortals lay atop the ship's hull. Many more attempted to swim to the island, but being unfamiliar with the formation, did not know where to land, leading to an even bloodier and unbearable sight. Soon, the rogue cultivator's large ship capsized with a thunderous noise. A more magnificent and luxurious ship slowly approached from behind Yu Xiaogui and his people. With cultivators from a Yu family still smeared in blood, they landed on the ship. Only then did Yu Xiaogui look up and smile, channeling his mana to amplify his voice to reverberate across the lake. "Honorable family heads, please join us on board for a discussion." After a tantalizing pause, people gradually made their way onto the ship from afar. They were seemingly the Yu family's entourage and were engaging in cheerful conversation. Pub Future adds Lu Cixi and Li Tongya landed on the ship, their spiritual sense scanning the items on board efficiently. The deck was already set with 2 rows of stone tables, with Yu Xiaogui seated at the head of it. Sipping wine, Yu Mugo hurriedly came over and greeted them, cupping his fist to Li Tongya while disregarding Lu Cixi by his side. "Senior Tongya, you've arrived early. We apologize for making you wait." "Not at all. It actually allowed me to witness the distinguished demeanor of your esteemed family head." Li Tongya politely responded, to which Yu Xiaogui, sitting at the head, looked up. He placed his wine cup down and squinted at him, seeming to be pondering something silently. After exchanging a few pleasantries, all the families finally arrived. Only 2 families on the lake had Foundation Establishment realm cultivators. The Yu family from the east coast and the Fei family from the north coast. Li Tongya was seated next to Yu Xiaogui, directly across from the Fei family, a position that was quite conspicuous. Li Tongya frowned upon noticing Yu Xiaogui's gaze and took his seat reluctantly. The head of the Fei family, also a cultivator of the Foundation Establishment realm, was dressed in brocade and appeared much younger and more elegant than Yu Xiao. He smiled slightly at Li Tongya, who returned the gesture with a nod, acknowledging each other's intentions. Yu Xiaogui, seeing that everyone was present, nodded and stood up with an arrogant smile. "Thank you all for being here on time, giving face to my Yu family. I, Xiaogui, am grateful to everyone." His voice boomed loudly. The representatives from the other families quickly stood up, saying they dared not take credit. Yu Xiaogui waved them off, interrupting their polite refusals, and continued. "Ever since the Immortal Mansion had secluded itself from the world, the Azure Pond sect and the Golden Tangate had divided the Moongaze Lake, leading to continuous conflicts. There hasn't been a single day of peace on the lake. The rise and fall of various clans over more than 300 years have led to unbearable chaos. I presume everyone has had enough." Lu Cixi, caught off guard by the speech, internally cursed at Yu Xiaogui for his slyness. Everyone's been living comfortably. Who would want the Yu family to rise above them? He sure knows how to sugarcoat things. He thought to himself grumbly. Despite thinking this way, he agreed aloud respectfully. "What the family head you said is true. I knew it. Yu Xiaogui nodded and beamed before glancing at Li Tongya, who remained silent at his side. He then turned to look at the brocade-clad, middle-aged man who seemed more interested in his wine cup, but he smiled. Fortunately, Golden Tang Gate has retreated, and Azurpon sect has moved north. Finally, Moongaze Lake has come under a unified jurisdiction. The end of these chaotic days is near. Pausing for dramatic effect, he continued, "My son has been accepted into Yuanwu Peak, and through his request to the peak's master, it was reported to the main peak." Chapter 143. Milan Prefecture. Pausing for dramatic effect, he continued, "My son has been accepted into Yuanwu Peak, and through his request to the peak's master, it was reported to the main peak. The entire Moongaze Lake has been designated as a separate jurisdiction and removed from Lixia Prefecture. Our Yu family's 12 towns will form a new prefecture, named Milan Prefecture. From now on, you all will no longer need to submit your tributes at Lixia Prefecture. It can now be done directly at Milan." Chapter 144. Yu Mujin. Upon hearing these words, a tumult arose from the seats below. The family heads displayed varied expressions, whispering among each other. Itonya nodded slightly as well, finally understanding where the Yu family's audacity stemmed from, and was left to ponder to himself. With a family boasting 2 foundation establishment realm cultivators, a disciple practicing in Yuanwu Peak, securing a unique jurisdiction to control the fate of the surrounding clans, and these coupled with the rebuilding of the market after the destruction of the Moongaze Lake market, to control the flow of goods, all advantages lie with the Yu family. Should all plans succeed, the Yu family indeed will solidify their dominance over the lake. However, Yu Xiaogui, despite his ruthless actions, is overly impulsive and takes too many risks. Such a straightforward and forceful control over the other clans may backfire instead. His gaze swept across the visibly upset head of the Fei family opposite him. The middle-aged man was dressed in white, frowning as he held his cup. He caught Li Tongya's glance briefly. Although the two were unaware of each other's names, having never met before, they found themselves aligned in interests in regards to the Yu family's aggression. The murmurs among the family heads ceased instantly, including those previously rallying behind the Yu family, who fell silent almost immediately. Everyone understood the gravity of the situation. No one dared to speak up. "What do you all think?" Yu Xiaogui sneered. Anticipating the reaction of the family heads, he was indifferent to the response of most clans, his attention fixed on a few whose disciples were cultivating within sects or who had strong backing. Seeing them all silent, with both the Li and Fei families not uttering a word, he pressed on, "Lu Cixi, what does your Lu family think?" Lu Cixi, momentarily stunned, wore a bitter smile on his aged face. Knowing full well of Yu Xiaogui's intentions, yet fearing retaliation, he sighed. "If the Yu family leads, of course it's for the best." His voice trailed off, and Yu Xiaogui, still with a cold expression, then declared loudly to the audience before him, "If there are no further objections, then the market matter is settled. I hope for your support when the time comes." Li Tongya internally scoffed that a trip to Lixia Prefecture is but a few hours away. What difference would it make to a qi cultivator? The Yu family's market will only attract those at the embryonic breathing realm, and we won't be seeing substantial profits for the next few decades. An air of unresolved tension hung over the family heads, powerless against the Yu family's dominance. As the atmosphere at the banquet grew colder, Li Tongya glanced down at the delicacies before him, cautiously refraining from partaking in the feasting. Much to his surprise, a middle-aged man from the Yu family stepped forward, cupping his fist. "I've heard of the Li family head's exceptional swordsmanship. I, too, practice the sword and would like to request your guidance." Li Tongya sighed quietly, his spiritual sense briefly scanning the man to only discover that this man was at the 6th heavenly layer of the qi cultivation realm. Oh, it has come to this. They really do hold me in high regard. Everyone's attention instantly focused on Li Tongya. Ever since the Qing Sui sword immortal, Li Cheijing, defeated Qi Jiun in Yi Mountain City with a single celestial moonsword intent, the reputation of the Li family of Lijing had resounded across the lakeside prefectures. All the families were eager for someone to test the Li family, and the Yu family's probing aligned with everyone's wishes. For a moment, the atmosphere at the banquet became lively, and even the head of the Fei family looked up in interest for once. Itonya, under the pressure of everyone's gaze, simply smiled. However, he showed no desire to take the spotlight, declining politely. "I'm not sure where you heard such rumors, but I'm afraid I cannot oblige." The mood cooled down immediately, and the middle-aged man from the Yu family gritted his teeth when he heard his response. A swordsman should advance fearlessly. Yet Brother Tongya shrinks back? Is this the Li family's attitude? He spat rudely. Why Yu Xiao gestured for him to stop. Raising his cup with a smile, "I'd still ask for Brother Tongya to give our family this honor." With the conversation having reached this point, Li Tongya had no choice but to stand up and move to the center of the boat. He cupped his fist and introduced himself. Li Tongya of the Li family from Lijing. Yu Mujian of the Yu family from Milan. Yu Mujian coldly introduced himself in return, drawing his sword and immediately launching an attack toward Li Tongya with a chilling sword glow. Li Tongya, upon a brief scan with a spiritual sense, knew this man's swordsmanship posed no threat. However, he felt an inexplicable familiarity with the sword in the man's hand, prompting him to be more cautious. Li Tongya drew his sword to block his attack, not going on the offensive, but simply and skillfully deflecting each of Yu Mujian's sword aura and chi with almost no effort at all, after over a dozen attacks. With Yu Mujian having exhausted most of his sword techniques without making Li Tongya so much as to shift his stance, his expression turned ugly. The families above watched intently, as Li Tongya stood still, effortlessly neutralizing Yu Mujian's aggressive assaults, earning a round of applause. Li Tongya's swordsmanship is far superior. Yu Mujian is no match at all. As expected of a sword immortal clan, praised and othered, Yu Mujian's face grew even darker, and Yu Xiaogui's smile slowly faded. He was observing coldly and was lost in his own thoughts. Such sophisticated sword moves and such a solid foundation in swordsmanship. The Li family indeed has a swordsmanship legacy, starting from at least grade 3. Yu Mujian glared at him, forming a hand seal with his left hand while his right hand held the sword, which suddenly lit up with a hazy white glow, exuding sharp chi. Once again, he slashed toward Li Tongya aggressively. The Yu family's sword technique, someone shouted from below. Yu Mujian's face showed a hint of pride, his strikes slower but each with great momentum and force, pressing toward Li Tongya. After several exchanges, boos filled the air as Li Tongya still stood unmoving in his spot with his sword in hand, effortlessly countering his attacks. Even the Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator in the white brocade robe from the Fei family snickered softly. This was an action that clearly irritated Yu Xiao. Is that all you can do, Li Tongya? Seems like that Qing Sui sword immortal was just a nobody, and only good at defense. Yu Mujian spat through gritted teeth. He was visibly flustered and recklessly cursing, causing an immediate shift in the atmosphere among the family heads seated above. The White Robe Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator from the Fei family was almost bursting into laughter. Yu Xiaogui's face changed drastically, and he hastily shouted, "Fool! Be quiet." Li Tongya's expression finally changed, a frown forming and a flash of anger in his eyes. He repelled Yu Mujian's attack with a single sword strike, sheathed his sword, and then drew it again swiftly. A radiant arc of white sword light then burst forth, heading straight for Yu Mujian. "Mercy, please." Just as the brilliant sword light rose, Yu Xiaogui had already stepped forward, caught off guard. Yu Mujian hastily parried with 3 strikes, but against the celestial moon slash technique, his efforts shattered like paper. He stumbled backward, pale-faced and on the verge of being wounded when a pair of hands as white as jade caught the bright sword arc in front of him. With a movement of Yu Xiaogui's left hand, he forcibly dissipated the sword arc into scattered sharp chi before pulling Yu Mujian aside and angrily demanding, "The Qing Sui sword immortal is not someone you can insult at will. Apologize now." Yu Mujian sputtered a few words before finally gritting his teeth and biting down on his tongue. "I was careless with my words and offended the esteemed sword immortal. Please forgive me," he apologized, albeit reluctantly. Yu Xiao, both angry and anxious, now had to humbly apologize for his disciple's offense despite losing face and having to make amends now. Smiling outwardly, but seething with rage internally, he said, "I failed to discipline him properly, leading to the offense against Senior Che Jing from Lijing. Brother Tongya, please forgive us. Whatever punishment you deem fit for him, my Yu family will accept." While still maintaining a pleasant facade, Yu Xiaogui was furious. "One incapable son has nearly ruined me. Fortunately, Mujian is smarter, otherwise the future of our Yu family would be most uncertain." Li Tongya smiled softly, picking up Yu Mujian's fallen sword from the ground and offering sage advice. Cultivating the sword path doesn't solely depend on sharpness. Seeing Yu Mujian's defiant look, Li Tongya earnestly added, "To advance sharply is to retreat swiftly. The essence of drawing blades lies in concealment. If you take my words to heart, your swordsmanship can advance further. Since the head of the Yu family proposed a punishment, I'll keep this sword with me. Once you can control your sharp chi at will, come to Mount Lijing to retrieve your sword." He added that Yu Mujian was visibly shaken by these words, but Yu Xiaogui nodded slightly, feeling relieved instead. Li Tongya's remarks gracefully defused the situation, transforming a peer challenge into a junior's request for guidance, effectively saving the Yu family from embarrassing themselves. Chapter 144. Yu Mujian, thank you, Senior. Yu Mujian murmured with a dazed look on his face. The surrounding family heads whispered among themselves after witnessing, with one praising Li Tongya loudly. Senior Tongya is truly a gentleman. Chapter 145. Father and son of the Yu family. At the age of 45, Li Tongya was significantly younger than most present here, standing out for having attained the 5th heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm. Even the 187-year-old Lu Cixi had only attained the seventh heavenly layer. Naturally, everyone respectfully referred to him as a senior. He cupped his fist politely to the other family heads before sheathing his long sword, gracefully returning to his seat. Yu Xiaogui's expression brightened slightly as he nodded and said, "The Li family swordsmanship is indeed unmatched around the lake and far superior to our Yu families. Today has been quite the eye-opener for me. By attributing Yu Mujian's defeat to the superiority of the Li family's swordsmanship rather than a lack of talent in the Yu family." Everyone heard a light chuckle from Li Tongya. He let the comment slide, preferring to keep a lower profile to ensure the other families remained wary of the Yu and Fei families. After all, Lu Cixi doesn't have many years left. With the Yin family and the Lu family traditionally allied, once Lu Cixi passes away, the delicate balance between the three families will break, presenting an opportunity for the Li family. It's best to keep things as calm as possible before then, avoiding unnecessary complications. Having achieved their goal and tested Li Tongya's swordsmanship, Yu Xiaogui found an excuse to leave the banquet. Soon, the other clans followed suit and also departed, one by one. Tongya deliberately avoided Lu Cixi and headed back to the southern shore alone. Gliding over the crystal-clear lake, Li Tongya reflected to himself, why Yu Xiaogui is ruthless and impulsive, but he's smart for affiliating themselves with the Yu family, which is rising to prominence. He's no doubt a difficult adversary. Then there's Yu Mugo, equally ruthless but more cautious, likely even harder to deal with than his father. It seems like our good days are numbered. Flying south for a while, Li Tongya landed on a small islet. After waiting a moment, he soon caught sight of a middle-aged man in a white brocade robe approaching from afar, landing gracefully on the islet with an air of great elegance and sophistication. He was none other than the head of the Fei family. "Brother Tongya, what a coincidence. I am Fei Wangbai of the Fei family. Your reputation precedes you." Fei Wangbai appeared to be in his 40s. However, he was actually over 100 years old. As he observed Li Tongya, noting his calm and reliable demeanor, his smile became even more gentle. "Likewise, senior. You flatter me." Li Tongya dared not presume himself to be on equal terms with a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator, hence promptly addressing Fei Wangbai as a senior. Seeing Fei Wangbai stroke his beard and smile, he said, "Apart from an old rogue cultivator on the western shore, there are 3 Foundation Establishment realm cultivators on this lake. The Yu family accounts for 2 of them, with Yu Xiaogui at the early stage and Yu Yufeng the White Jade Fist at the late stage of Foundation Establishment realm. I'm just a nobody who broke through to the Foundation Establishment realm 20 years ago. Hardly someone who could be called a senior." Fei Wangbai's intention was clear, and both men understood each other's stance well. Seeing Li Tongya smile slightly, Fei Wangbai continued, "Among the younger generation of the Yu family, Yu Mujian is brave and values friendship, achieving Qi cultivation realm at the age of 40. Yu Mugo and others are shrewd and ruthless, a deadly combination, and are no fools at all, which makes us quite envious, I understand." Li Tongya nodded thoughtfully before changing the subject. He asked solemnly, "In your opinion, with the current chaotic situation on the Gully Road, is it possible for the Yu family's market to operate smoothly, senior?" Fei Wangbai shook his head and a smile crept onto his face. "That won't be easy. I have a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator friend in the prefecture who told me that a band of thieves has been roaming the Gully Road. If Yu Yufeng personally oversees the market, it might be fine. However, if Yu Yufeng encounters something that takes him away from the market, I fear there will be trouble." Li Tongya immediately understood Fei Wangbai and the others' plans, but did not want to get involved, fearing Fei Wangbai might misunderstand. "It's a pity my swordsmanship is too conspicuous, attracting jealousy. Otherwise, I would have liked to offer my support," he quickly added hastily. "That won't be necessary." Fei Wangbai laughed heartily in response to hearing that, noting that Li Tongya was not specific on who the offer was for, the Yu family or the thieves. Knowing that the Li family also supported this matter, he finally nodded and spoke nonchalantly. "The Yu family is now dominant. If the families cannot produce another Foundation Establishment realm cultivator, I fear they'll be preyed upon and gradually extinguished over the next 100 years. Although the Li family is under the protection of a sword immortal and the Yu family dares not cross this line, nothing is guaranteed. Remember, the demise of one leads to the vulnerability of another." Li Tongya cupped his fist, deciding to no longer hold back his thoughts and opinions. He spoke his next words in great earnest and fervor. "In the days to come, there will be many opportunities for cooperation between our 2 families. My Li family is in the south, and the Fei family is in the north. Geographically, we are natural allies. I'm not short-sighted enough to sit by and watch the Yu family grow unchecked." With this, the 2 men simply smiled at each other before bidding farewell and returned to their own homes. After the cultivators on the ship had dispersed, Yu Mugo led his 2 clan brothers, one tall and the other plump, into the cabin. There in the spacious main cabin, A large chair was placed up high, where Yu Xiaoguwei plopped onto with a somewhat gloomy and somber expression. Upon seeing Yu Mugo enter, he sternly said, "Come here." Yu Mugo approached quickly, noticing Yu Xiaoguwei's fixed gaze on the wooden floor, his demeanor somewhat dark and unreadable. Yu Xiaoguwei suddenly asked, "What's the origin of Mujian's sword? Have you sent someone to inquire about it?" I too harbored doubts and had already asked the fourth brother about it. Yu Mugo replied, having anticipated the question. That sword is a Dharma artifact of the Qi cultivation realm, originally acquired by our ancestor during the destruction of Lingyu Gate. It looks unremarkable, and its material is unremarkable too. There's nothing special about it, he explained. Oh, Yu Xiaoguwei's brow eased slightly at this, his hand lifting lightly as he muttered, "Seems I was overthinking it." Then Li Tongya. Both father and son started to speak at the same time, but abruptly stopped. While Yu Xiaogan nodded approvingly at Yu Mugo, his eyes filled with satisfaction. With a slight lift of his hand resting on the armchair, he commanded, "You speak." Nodding, Yu Mugo then said in a deep voice, "Li Tongya is calm and restrained, like a black mamba lurking in the corner, just waiting for the chance to strike. Father, don't be fooled by his quiet and respectful demeanor. He is not someone to be underestimated. If we look down on him, we might come to regret it." Yu Xiaoguwei looked up, slightly surprised, putting down his teacup gently. He valued Li Tongya as well, but Yu Mugo's assessment of him was much higher than he had anticipated. After pondering for a moment, he asked, "What do you think we should do about him? While he has yet to reach the Foundation establishment realm, we should overpower him, lure him out, and secretly eliminate him. As long as no one knows that we've gotten rid of him, the Moongaze Lake will sooner or later be ours." Yu Mugo's expression was fierce, his teeth clenched. His eyes had a glint of malice in them. However, Yu Xiaoguwei shook his head, his expression becoming peculiarly stoic and unreadable. "You always say, I act rashly, yet you are far more impulsive in this matter. Li Tongya has the backing of the Qing Sui Sword Immortal, a genius disciple of the Azure Pond sect. How can we simply dispose of him so carelessly? If the sect investigates and uses a heart-questioning talisman, how would our Yu family cope? We would likely find ourselves in big trouble," he reprimanded sternly, his voice hard, while Yu Mugo's expression froze, reluctantly nodding in agreement as he cupped his fist and said, "You're right. I was being too reckless. Even if we can't deal with Li Tongya directly, we must curb the rise of the Li family." Yu Xiaoguwei refilled his cup, then continued with a smile, "Once the market matter is settled and we are free, we'll plan to eliminate a few of the Li family's younger generation. Make the Li family suffer a break in lineage, just like our ancestors did with the Wan family." They had secretly schemed for decades, and by the time Wan Huaqian finally realized it, it was too late for him to do anything. He was forced to enter seclusion to break through to Foundation establishment realm, only to meet a tragic end with the decline of his family. Yu Mugo's face also lit up with a smile, murmuring, "Exactly. The Li family now is exactly like the Wan family back then, except for the fact that our Yu family is even stronger now. Back then, we covertly pressured the Wan family's Qi cultivators, secretly preserving the Ji family. Now it's the turn of the Yin and Lu families. By the way, Gower, there's something I need to ask you." Yu Xiaoguo suddenly put down his teacup, his voice becoming grave. Chapter 145. Father and son of the Yu family. Yi heard that the Yin family has produced a prodigy named Jingming, who has attained Qi cultivation realm at 14. This is remarkable. Yu Mugo's expression turned serious. "Father, rest assured, I've already sent people to keep an eye on him. The moment Jingming leaves the Yin family, I'll be informed. The Yin family won't have the chance to produce another Foundation establishment realm cultivator." Yu Xiaoguwei then nodded, smiling warmly with satisfaction plastered on his face. "I never have to worry about anything when you're the one handling things." Chapter 146. River Crossing Torrential Steppe. Chapter 146. River Crossing Torrential Steppe. Li Tongya returned home, and with Li Xianfeng not yet back from the prefecture, he returned to his cave dwelling on Meiche Peak instead. Opening the stone door, he lightly tapped his storage pouch. A rather simple-looking long sword materialized in his hand right away. "This long sword of Yu Mujian. Its material seems unremarkable," he muttered to himself as he inspected the sword, noting an engraved Yu character, one on the hilt, finally understanding the source of the familiar feeling he felt. "Ah, so it's an artifact from Lingyu Gate," he murmured to himself. Activating his spiritual sense, he channeled the river true essence from within him into the sword, causing it to emit a bright light. Tongya channeled about 10% of his mana into the sword, and soon enough, a sound of rushing water emerged. His eyes lit up as he heard this, and he continued pouring more true essence into the blade. The river true essence condensed by the river one chi technique was naturally powerful in the first place, and after receiving empowerment from the deep ocean long whale talisman, Li Tongya's mana was astonishingly vast, much like the ocean. Now, even 10% of his mana was comparable to half of the mana for an average early-stage Chi cultivator. The sound of the water emanating from his sword became increasingly violent. After several moments focused on channeling his mana into the sword, one stroke of the U character on the sword hilt suddenly lit up. It took about 50% of Li Tongya's true essence and the time taken to burn a stick of incense to fully illuminate the entire U character. The mana required for this feat far surpassed the capability of a peak Chi cultivator. It seems this sword was originally intended to select cultivators who practiced the River 1 Chi technique and reached the Foundation Establishment realm. Recalling the River Mountain Sutra, Li Tongya had a plan. Considering Zhang Yun's words, the River 1 Chi technique is likely a preliminary technique to the technique in the River Mountain Sutra. If I can unlock that jade slip, my family will possess a complete legacy of the Purple Mansion realm. While he pondered these thoughts, the sword in his hand buzzed and levitated, emitting shimmering water light that illuminated the cave. It projected onto the cave walls, revealing a series of hidden text. The river-crossing torrential step. Li Tongya was overjoyed. Footwear techniques were the rarest among all the techniques. Not only were they expensive, but they were also seldom seen for sale. He eagerly memorized the content projected by the water light. After a brief moment, the light finally dimmed. The river-crossing torrential step was a footwork technique from Lin Yu Gate, sealed in the sword by a predecessor named Xiao Xianyu. The text mentioned that he acquired this footwork technique at a mountain river, and, at the end, it even included a minor technique called the blood escape technique, an escape method that consumed essence, chi, and life, and only to be used in times of desperation, potentially saving one's life in critical moments. River-crossing torrential step is a grade 3 footwork technique. Xiao Xianyu sealed the Lin Yu Gate's legacy into this sword, using sword light to pass on the legacy. It appears this predecessor's swordsmanship was also quite profound. Li Tongya marveled, his eyes twinkling in slight amazement. This footwork technique, whether for combating enemies or escaping, provides a safeguard for the descendants of my Li family. This is truly a great find, he added joyously. Keeping the sword levitating mid-air with his mana, Li Tongya bowed slightly as a gesture of gratefulness and respect to the predecessor. An epiphany struck him as he thought. The Xiao family of Li Xia claims legacy from Lin Yu Gate, and this predecessor also bears the surname Xiao. Could he be an ancestor of Li Xia's Xiao family? Putting the sword away, Li Tongya considered visiting the Xiao family to inquire further and took out a jade slip to carefully record everything with his spiritual sense. Li Xianfeng landed in the market of Cloud Crown Peak, noticing a decrease in foot traffic compared to previous years. After all, it was usually busier during the days of tribute payment when many clans were busy trading in the market. Now, on an ordinary day, it was not nearly as lively. Xianfeng entered a leather shop and called over a few attendants of the embryonic breathing realm, dropping bear meat sealed with a spell from his pouch onto the floor with a clattering sound. How many spirit stones can this fetch? The attendants nodded vigorously at his request. Upon seeing that it was a demonic beast of Chi cultivation realm, they hurriedly called over the shop owner, who was a Chi cultivator and clad in leather. He evaluated the bear meat with an eager gaze before speaking. Fellow Taoist, this bear meat is full of spiritual Chi and hasn't been dead for long. I'll value it at 21 spirit stones, he declared cheerfully. Xianfeng nodded. As a seasoned demonic beast hunter, he was familiar with the market and found the price reasonable. He quickly agreed, exchanging the goods for spirit stones and pocketing them. Feeling satisfied with the earnings, stepping out, he encountered a young man in fox fur who greeted him with a warm smile. Brother Xianfeng, we meet again. Brother Changdai. Li Xianfeng greeted Lu Changdai in a cheery manner. The young man held jade beads in hand and wore a pristine fox fur coat. I was looking for a formation material in the market and didn't expect to run into you. Let's sit down for a chat. My treat, he proposed generously. Pulling Li Xianfeng toward a nearby tavern, Li Xianfeng, in high spirits, agreed and followed him inside. Lu Changdai was the first to strike a conversation between the two. Is the sun right? Profound light formation working well? Perfectly fine. Li Xianfeng replied right away with a nod. After ordering a few dishes and bringing up the wine, Lu Changdai pondered for a moment, then thought to himself, it's been over a decade since that demonic disaster. I wonder if this fellow in front of me has any news about it. However, considering the fact that the calamity affected the Azure Pond sect and Golden Tang Gate, Li Xianfeng might not be aware. Filtering his thoughts, Lu Changdai came to his own conclusion. Might as well ask. Who knows if there might be some knowledge to gain? With this thought, he smiled at Li Xianfeng and leaned forward in a casual manner. Brother Xianfeng, have you heard of someone named Jiang Yan? Jiang Yan. Li Xianfeng mumbled as he thought for a moment. After a brief pause, he realized he had no clue and chuckled. Never heard of him. Why? Are you looking for this person? He asked, rather amused. Haha, just asking. Lu Changdai replied as he quickly changed the subject, feeling somewhat helpless inside. He had hoped to achieve great things in this life, but aside from cultivating faster and bringing back his knowledge of array formations, he found almost nothing else useful. The powerful figures from his past life had not yet risen, and they never publicly shared their rise to power, leaving Lu Changdai at a loss on how to seize an advantage beforehand. He only remembered some major events from his past life, barely managing to establish some relationships with potential figures. Feeling somewhat down lately, he spent his days setting up formations for others to earn some spirit stones while feeling uncertain about his own future. Seeing the carefree Li Xianfeng, he could not help but feel envious. Brother Xianfeng, what do you think is the meaning of life? Caught off guard and a bit amused by such a sudden question, Li Xianfeng simply waved off the question. Just to live a happy life, that's all. He responded with a light-hearted laugh. With this statement, an unrestrained and unruly aura enveloped him. Lu Changdai replied with an incredulous look. Brother Xianfeng, your words are almost demonic, resembling the chaos sown by the demonic faction. Li Xianfeng laughed heartily before picking up a piece of demonic beast meat and sipping another mouth of wine. Whether it's the righteous path or the demonic path, when the top sects disregard lives so loosely, how are they any different from the demonic faction? The common people struggle to survive. I care for not much in this world. As long as my family is not bullied, I can drink and eat meat freely. I don't care if the world falls apart, he proclaimed with a tight smile. Setting down his wine cup, Li Xianfeng solemnly said, life is full of disappointments. When faced with adversity, grit your teeth and get through it. When times are good, make the most of it. Otherwise, you'll regret it when you die someday. Brother Xianfeng is really... Lu Changdai chuckled wryly, finding Li Xuanfeng's carefree demeanor somewhat relaxing. Since his rebirth, he had been constantly calculating non-stop, leading to him being exhausted and dizzy from such extensive effort. He found time spent with Li Xianfeng to be quite relaxing in contrast. However, Brother Xianfeng, we shouldn't speak too plainly in public, Lu Changdai cautioned after scanning their surroundings. Since it was still early in the day, there were only very few people around. He breathed a sigh of relief and raised his cup to Li Xianfeng with a smile. Raising his cup, Li Xianfeng suddenly thought of the old man named Su San. He felt a squeeze in his heart and mumbled to himself, Su San, just wait. When the opportunity arises, I'll also make Golden Tang Gate taste blood. 1. You as in the Yuling Yu, not the Ui. Chapter 147. Seclusion. Li Xianfeng bid farewell to Lu Changdai and left some money behind for Jiang Yunu, then rode the wind southward along the Guli Road for a few hours. The faint golden light dome enveloped in misty clouds of Mount Lijing appeared before him. Landing on the mountaintop, he was greeted by the cheerful Li Xianxian. Seeing Li Xuanxuan's contagious smile, Li Xianfeng could not help but smile as well. Brother Xian, what's making you so happy? He asked with a grin. Second uncle has acquired a treasure sword containing a footwork legacy from Lingyu Gate called the River Crossing Torrential Step. It's a grade 3 technique. Naturally, that's a cause for joy. Li Xianxian replied with almost a chirp in his tone. He handed over a jade slip before continuing. Everyone at home has read and memorized it. Second uncle has already entered seclusion to practice it. You should read it quickly. Li Xianfeng laughed as he took the jade slip, scanned it briefly with his spiritual sense, and nodded seriously. Great timing. It's Lu and in family's turn to guard the mind vein, and there are no affairs at home that need attention. I'm also planning to enter seclusion to make a breakthrough. I'll take this jade slip with me and leave the home matters to you, brother. Li Xianxian nodded in agreement, waving his hand dismissively to assure him. That's good news. You go ahead and focus on your seclusion. With Li Xianxian and Chen Donghe both already having condensed the Jade Capital Chakra and attained the 5th stage of the embryonic breathing realm, the family's safety should not be an issue for concern at all. I Xianfeng nodded before pocketing the jade slip, then flew toward Meiche Peak to begin his cultivation in seclusion. I Xianxian descended the mountain only to be approached hastily by Li Xianling, appearing to have an eager announcement to make. Brother Xian, people from Yu family have arrived at the front yard, asking to see you. Not Qi cultivators. Li Xianxian frowned. Usually, when other families visited, Qi cultivators would inquire from outside the formation. Only messengers or disciples of the embryonic breathing realm would send someone to formally announce their arrival. He's a Qi cultivator who came down riding the wind. He specifically said not to disturb clan Uncle Tongya. So I came up to report. Li Xianling answered. Li Xianxian nodded, puzzled. Nonetheless, he straightened his clothes and walked toward the courtyard. There, he spotted a middle-aged man in a long robe sitting on a chair, fidgeting with a wooden armrest, clearly uneasy. His aura was formidable, indicating he was at least a mid-stage Qi cultivator. Li Xianxian of the Li family greets the elder. Li Xianxian greeted as he announced his presence. Cupping his fist, the middle-aged man returned the gesture right away, and upon realizing the visitor was not Li Tongya, looked visibly relieved. He carried a sword on his back and looked rather stiff. He then introduced himself politely. You family's Yu Mujian. Yu Mujian lost face in the spar on the boat and got severely reprimanded by Yu Xiaogui upon returning home. Coinciding with the Yu family's market opening, Yu Xiaogui sent him to apologize to Li Tongya and also to extend an invitation to the Li family to attend the opening ceremony. All the way, Yu Mujian felt aggrieved, fearing that Li Tongya would think he had come to reclaim the sword. Heaven pity him. All this talk of sharp chi and control it at his will left Yu Mujian utterly confused. He did not understand even a single word of his. He thought he grasped the essence of swordsmanship, yet he failed to comprehend Li Tongya's words. Ashamed to meet Li Tongya, he chose to follow the process for embryonic breathing realm cultivators when visiting the Li family. Upon inquiring with Li Xianling, he learned that Li Tongya was in seclusion and not receiving guests, which was a relief for him. Even heaven couldn't bear to see me embarrassed further. He could not help but blush sheepishly to himself at the thought. However, when he met Li Xianxian and introduced themselves, Li Xianxian realized who he was and could not contain his surprise. "So, you are Senior Mujian." His exclamation hit Yu Mujian like a bolt of lightning. Realizing he had made a complete fool of himself to the extent that even people across the lake had found out, he gulped and asked awkwardly, "You've heard of me?" Seeing Yu Mujian's expression, Li Xianxian quickly changed the subject, smiling. "Elder Tongya, my second uncle, told me that among the families around the lake, only young Master Yu Mujian's swordsmanship can truly be called the way of the sword. The rest are merely hacking with swords." Though the comment was meant as fickle flattery, the simple-minded Yu Mujian took it to heart, delighted. Recalling his provocations on the boat, he felt deep guilt, sighing as he looked up at the sky. "Li Tongya is truly a gentleman. I'm a lesser man." Li Xianxian was stunned, unable to keep up with his train of thought. Yu Mujian sighed before handing over the invitation to Li Xianxian. "Once Senior Tongya emerges from seclusion, I must personally visit to apologize," he said solemnly with a grim smile. While still muttering words like sharp chi and control it at his will, Yu Mujian disappeared into the distance, leaving Li Xianxian and Li Xianling looking at each other in bewilderment. This person, Li Xianling, was at a loss for words, and even Li Xianxian was somewhat puzzled as he opened the invitation card. The Yu family had already informed the families about the event on the boat, but made a special effort to deliver a formal invitation to the Li family, both as a gesture of respect and as an attempt at goodwill. After reading the invitation, Li Xianxian made up his mind and instructed, "Brother Qiuyang is good in his way of handling things. Sending someone with his cultivation will not make the Li family appear too ostentatious as well." Time flowed like a river, and over the past year, with not much happening at home, Li Xianxian diligently practiced while keeping an eye on the movements of various families. However, mastering the complex and profound river-crossing torrential step from Lingyu Gate was not a feat that could be simply achieved in a day or two. Lifting his brush, Li Xianxian drew a talisman on the paper in one fluid motion. Having practiced for about 10 years now, his success rate in talisman drawing had finally become profitable, adding yet another source of income to the family. The sunlight from the window bathed Li Yuanxiu in a golden glow. The boy, now 4 or 5 years old and having just returned from school, stood quietly in the sunlight, watching his father. Li Xianxian looked up and caught his eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked gently with a smile. "Father, it's been a month since you last visited Jiaoer," Li Yuanxiu spoke. This comment startled Li Xianxian, who narrowed his eyes in suspicion. "Who told you to say that?" "Nobody," Li Yuanxiu replied as he pressed his lips tightly together, looking a bit afraid of Li Xuanxuan's serious demeanor, but still meeting his gaze defiantly. "All right." Li Xianxian finally sighed as he nodded and picked up his son. He headed out, feeling rather emotional. Li Xiamping had died in Mount Yu's territory. Although the Li family was not aware of the details, they had suspected the involvement of Mu Jumon and Mount Wu, but had to let it go in order to maintain peace and avoid Mount Wu's attention. When Mu Yalu came to propose marriage, Li Tongya and Li Xianxian valued her ancient Mula bloodline, planning it as a chess piece for future control over Mount Yu, to avoid trouble when great changes occur in the mountains. However, since Mu Yalu is Mu Jiamon's clan sister, Li Xianxian, despite not saying it aloud, could not help his feelings of resentment. This affected his feelings toward Li Yuanjiao. Hearing his son's words now, he began to ponder his actions. For the sake of the family's stability in the next 100 years, I must not show favoritism. As they approached the courtyard, Li Xianxian set Li Yuanxiu down gently, who cheerfully ran away to find his younger brother. "Yuanjiao." Soon, Mu Yalu's joyful voice was heard from a distance. "Xiao, you're here. Come sit." Li Xianxian laughed and entered the courtyard to see Mu Yalu, who was startled to see him. She paused for a moment before quickly regaining her composure and bowed politely. "The family head has arrived." Li Yuanjiao, holding a wooden toy, looked up and called out, "Father." Li Xianxian nodded at Mu Yalu and sat aside, watching the children play. The sunlight at the foot of the mountain was even brighter now, making Li Yuanjiao's eyes appear a brownish hue as he smiled toward Li Xianxian. Jiaoer, come here. Li Xuanchuan's voice trembled slightly. Mu Yalu, sensing something was off, looked up worriedly. Li Yuanjiao walked over, puzzled. Li Xianxian examined his face but found no trace of brown in the shadows. Sighing, Li Xianxian stood up, his gaze wandering. I have matters to attend on the mountain. I must leave now, he said solemnly. With that, he left, leaving Li Yuanjiao and Li Yuanxiu playing in the courtyard. Mu Yalu watched him go, sitting quietly in the corner. Chapter 148. The stag Li Xianxian returned to the mountain with a heavy heart, only to find a middle-aged man standing in the courtyard. He was dressed simply in a gray robe and holding his sword, appearing to be lost in his thoughts while he gazed at the sky. Second uncle, you've come out of seclusion, Li Xianxian exclaimed, immediately filled with joy. Tonya nodded slightly and said softly, this breakthrough went smoothly, having accumulated cultivation for 4 years. Breaking through to the 6th heavenly layer of Qi cultivation realm was just a matter of time. By this year, Li Tonya was 46 years old. Thanks to the aid of the Deep Ocean Long Whale Talisman, he had reached the 6th heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm. By the age of 60, he hoped to reach the peak of this realm with hopes of breaking through to the foundation establishment realm. Without the talisman, reaching the peak of the Qi cultivation realm by 60 would have been challenging, let alone the foundation establishment realm. After all, unlike the disciples of major sects who could cultivate peacefully within their sects, their family cultivators were always engaged in skirmishes and battles with others. As they aged, their bodies became more worn and prone to issues like blood stagnation or the invasion of malicious qi. Without access to precious medicines or spirit pills for healing, their pace of cultivation inevitably would slow down. Is there anything happening at home? What's the situation with the Yu family's market? Li Tonya asked. Xianxian hurriedly reported everything to him, including the incident with Yu Mujian right before Li Tonya's seclusion. Li Tonya smiled and said, Yu Mujian is probably the most talented among the Yu family's disciples, devoted to swordsmanship. He's truly fortunate to be born into such a prominent family with his skills. Li Xianxian agreed and changed the topic, a hint of amusement crossing his face. Since the opening of the Yu family's market over a month ago, and as their people moved there, we heard someone attacked the main family's formation in Milan Prefecture. The Yu family had no choice but to send reinforcements. Li Tonya raised his eyebrows as he heard this. That it was as he expected. A simple yet effective strategy. The attackers probably came back as soon as the reinforcements left, right? Exactly, Li Xianxian recounted with excitement. No sooner had the Yu family's reinforcements left, that 2 foundation establishment realm cultivators immediately attacked the formation directly. Although the Yu family was prepared, leaving Yu Xiaogui behind, and even using 2 talismans of the foundation establishment realm to block the attacks, it still caused panic, driving away a large portion of their customers. It attracted many troublemakers and looters, leaving them with a huge mess to deal with. Li Tonya nodded thoughtfully and explained, it is most likely many of those troublemakers were arranged by the other families, timing it just right to deal the Yu family a significant blow. Li Xianxian found Li Tonya's words quite reasonable and continued after a brief pause. Although the Yu family was angry, they had no choice but to swallow this loss silently. Months later, the market saw a drastic reduction in foot traffic, which has yet to recover. Did our disciples get involved? Li Tonya asked with some concern, and Li Xianxian assured him almost immediately. I remembered second uncle's instruction, ordering our family's disciples not to go out, let alone cause trouble at that market, he said with a grin. Well done, Li Tonya praised before patting Li Xianxian on the shoulder. Winter is approaching. I'll hunt a few demonic beasts of the Qi cultivation realm in the mountains for sacrifice and request a talisman Qi for you guys as well, he instructed. Yes, Li Xianxian was overjoyed, eagerly agreeing. Watching as Li Tonya flew away, his lips moved silently, the doubts in his heart ultimately unvoiced. Forget it. Li Xianxian sighed softly before walking a few steps into the yard, murmuring to himself. I should talk to Jingtian about this and see how she recorded it. If it's not written in the family history, that's best. If it is, hopefully, she won't include it. That way, Yuan Jiao could have a better life, and this lineage could face less slander and disparagement in the future. Li Tonya departed from Mount Lijing, where the autumn leaves of Mount Dali had already fallen, covering the ground in gold and russet. Following the mountain veins for a while, the landscape slowly transitioned from lush green to exposed brown earth. The large banyan tree, with white leaves, still stood tall and proud on the slope. A fox was pushing along a battered wooden cart, wandering back and forth clumsily. The cart was filled with fox cubs of various colors, all chirping and yipping endlessly. What a prolific friend you are. Li Tongya landed beneath the tree swiftly, chuckling softly. The fox looked downcast and squeaked, "Oh, not at all. With winter coming, food is scarce, and many foxes in the mountains have died. These cubs would likely freeze or starve to death. So I brought them back to raise them myself." Looking up at Li Tongya, the fox said, 380 li to the east, there's a deer king who has reached the Qi cultivation realm, under a great locust tree. It fits your requirements. The deer herd is likely to migrate in winter. If you go late, you might come up empty-handed. Li Tongya Nudda. Seeing the fox busy and overwhelmed, he dropped a bag of spirit patties on the ground before then cupping his fist and bidding his farewell to the fox. With that, he took off and flew eastward. After 2 hours, he finally spotted the big locust tree surrounded by a herd of wild deer. As he descended, the deer scattered in all directions. Noticing the cleanly gnawed bones of an unidentified wild animal on the ground, Li Tongya surged forward with the wind. This deer is quite ferocious. Having become a demon, it knows to feed on blood and is very cautious. After chasing it for dozens of li, Li Tongya finally locked onto a large and strong stag, its coral-like antlers still dripping with bloody droplets. However, the stag, being only at the second heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm, could not outrun Li Tongya, who flew in the sky and was unaffected by the terrain. It did not take him long at all to catch up to Itida. Li Tongya aimed to capture this beast alive. Without drawing his sword, he brought his palm down onto the stag's head with great might. The stag stumbled but persisted, continuing to run. After another heavy strike to its back, the stag finally tilted and fell, turning back to attempt to bite fiercely. Li Tongya drew his sword readily, and with a flash of white light, he cut off the stag's antlers. The deer cried out and fell to its knees, rolling on the ground and leaving a trail of crimson blood behind it. Merely a wild demonic beast, and not even knowing any spells, it is rather easy to subdue, Li Tongya commented, lifting the stag with his mana and sealing the blood wound on its head. Once he was done, he set off to return to Mount Lijing. In the dim mirror world, layers of gray fog float high in the sky, while below lay a land riddled with scars with countless gray-white buildings lying in ruins among moon-white pebbles. Liu Jiangxian stood alone amidst it all, holding a bright shining spell in the palm of his hand. He had been studying alone in this mirror world for years, drawing inspiration from the shamanic magic of Mount Yu, and had finally made some progress. Some ethereal figures made some small movements, and he lifted his palm slightly. Almost immediately, the bright shining spell falls like rain upon the moon-white pebbles before him. Crack, crack. The moon-white pebbles trembled and began to move, enveloped in a faint white halo. They swirled and spiraled under Liu Jiangxian's feet, assembling into a pile that eventually resembled a humanoid shape, complete with arms and legs. These moonstone figures, with their white shard-shaped heads, stood dumbfounded, staring at him blankly. Liu Jiangxian quickly condensed pure white supreme moonlight in his hand before reaching out and touching the tops of these figures' heads. The shard-shaped heads immediately lit up. Instantly, these moonstone figures, along with their bright heads, all came to life, digging where needed and moving bricks where required. They worked in perfect harmony, beginning to repair the ruins of the gray-white buildings. This spell, having read many of the Li family spell manuals, Liu Jiangxian found this spell completely different from the usual ones. The Li family spells followed specific procedures strictly, producing exactly what they were supposed to. However, his spells were whimsical, with no fixed outcome, and were entirely controlled by his thoughts. With a thought, Liu Jiangxian appeared at the top of a mountain where a smooth platform stood. At the center of it, there was a giant tree with huge white leaves, its roots entwined. Below it, there were stone tables and chairs that exuded an ancient charm. Listening intently, Liu Jiangxian heard a humming sound from outside the mirror. The Li family of Lijing offers respect along with fine delicacies and wine with unwavering devotion year upon year. Living at the northern vein of Mount Li, we sow in the spring, nurture the wheat through summer, harvest in autumn, and exterminate demons in winter to safeguard the fields. Observing the 3 Yuan festivals and 6 regular festivals, we maintain reverence, ensuring to pay timely respects. Through the smoke of our offerings and the blood of our sacrifice, we call upon the gods, seeking their blessings. At AP. Chapter 149, Requesting a Talisman. It appears they are requesting a talisman, Lu Jiangxian muttered before pausing for a moment. His divine sense reverberated from within him, enveloping the entire Li residence. By now, his divine sense coverage had greatly expanded, allowing him to clearly oversee not only the surrounding Mount Yu, but also the Lu family. The ritual of sacrifice was a major event for the people of the four towns. It had existed even before the Li family rose to prominence, though it was conducted at different times. Under the Li family's rule, the timing was unified, elevating the status of sacrifice to the highest level. Even children by the roadside knew how to recite a few lines from it. The weight of all matters lies in sacrifice and military affairs. The townsfolk each brought fruits to their courtyards and erected wooden poles, hanging paper lanterns in anticipation of the sacrificial hour. Now that the residents of the four towns had become more prosperous, ordinary families could now afford to lay out a few dishes of sugared fruits and pastries and burn leftover medicines from the past years outside their doors in a ritual called discarding 100 illnesses. Symbolizing good health, below Mount Lijing, the crowd was surging as townspeople craned their necks to look at the scene on the platform. The giant Qi cultivation realm deer, tightly bound by iron chains and kneeling on a stone platform, was a bloody and fearsome sight. "So this is the infamous demon deer," exclaimed the townspeople. "How frightening!" Though they said such things, they were not too frightened of the beast before them. Having witnessed numerous demonic beasts of the embryonic breathing realm invade their towns over the nearly 40 years since the spirit vein of Mount Dali was restored, they had long grown accustomed to seeing subdued demons and were not easily scared by them. The platform, polished to a mirror finish and carved with intricate patterns, had the huge coral-like antlers of the deer placed on the deer's neck. Li Tongya, with one hand on it, had the beast immobilized. At its front were several symbolic wooden and clay puppets, with the descendants of the Li family's Xian and Jing generations standing behind Li Tongya. Li Xianxian was standing one step behind Li Tongya, while Li Xianfeng and Li Xianling were positioned a step lower by the round platform. "Through the smoke of our offerings and the blood of our sacrifice, we call upon the gods, seeking their blessings." After reciting the prayer for the sacrifice, the surrounding townspeople immediately kneeled down in unison. Crowds on the streets and bridges bowed down in devout prayer, enveloping the town in a terrifying silence. "So this is the Li family's sacrifice," Wan Tianqiu whispered softly in awe. He had witnessed sacrifices more than once, but each time he could not help but be deeply moved. Standing respectfully below the platform, he was shaken to his core by the thick scent of incense and the solemn atmosphere. Thinking to himself, this doesn't seem like an immortal cultivator family that rose only 40 years ago. It's more akin to a 4 centuries-old prominent immortal cultivator clan. Wan Tianqiu had also participated in some ancestral ceremonies during his time with the Wan family, yet they could not compare to the solemn and dignified nature of the Li family ceremonies. Looking at the Li family's strict management of their disciples, Wan Tianqiu sighed softly to himself. The rapid rise of the Li family over the past 40 years is not without reason. On the platform, Li Xuanquan's ritual knife had already pierced straight into the brain of the large deer at the center of the platform. The creature let out a mournful cry, but was held firmly in place on the platform by Li Tongya, unable to move and dying instantly. Under the guidance of Lu Jiangxian's divine sense, streams of essence qi rose from the body of the large deer. This was accompanied by wisps of its dispersing deer-shaped soul, gushing out through the opening of its wound made by the ritual knife like a cloud of vital energy. Faint golden mists that go unseen by ordinary human eyes rose from everyone below the platform and from every household sky lantern, converging into the cloud of smoke and tinting it a faint golden hue. The cloud of smoke ascended for a few moments, dispersing into countless gray specks invisible to the naked eye. It floated up toward Mount Lijing. Instantly, divine light twinkled on the mirror surface. An invisible and formless circle of light spread out, and everyone below felt a sense of weightlessness. Liu Jiangxian conjured a gray talisman and glanced over at it before casting it toward Li Xianfeng. The gray talisman circled once and flew into his Shenyang mansion. Lu Jiangxian's vision momentarily blurred, revealing several lines of large characters. At the very top were inscribed words that were drawn in deep red strokes that seemed to emanate a fierce and aggressive aura. Strength to move mountains. This talisman qi, like Li Xiangping's before, could elevate the recipient's physical condition to an extremely high level, with vitality like smoke and strength that could move mountains. It was akin to that of a demonic beast. The second line in light blue strokes revealed a touch of agility, chasing clouds and moon. This talisman chi would grant the recipient the talent to ride the wind at several times its speed, which would prove to be of utmost practicality. The last one, prolong life and increase longevity, offered 40 years of life to the recipient and was the first that Lu Jiangxian chose to discard. After all, the path of immortal cultivation was fraught with danger, and it was not certain that Li Xianfeng would be able to use up his own lifespan. If he could not even survive, then prolonging life was pointless. Lu Jiangxian hesitated between strength to move mountains and chasing clouds and moon for a while. With a light flick of his finger, the light spot entered Li Xuanfeng's spiritual sense. Let him choose for himself. The population of the four towns has now increased significantly, and the incense energy has not only condensed into a single gray talisman, but also left a small portion unused. After pondering for a few moments, Lu Jiangxian suddenly remembered a secret technique that had never been used since the reparation of the mirror. Now, with the surplus of talisman chi from the incense, which was barely enough to condense another gray talisman, he realized it was just the right time to apply L. Xiamping once killed an old chi cultivator and obtained a jade pendant from him. This jade pendant restored the mirror's ability to condense talisman pills, which involved combining the surplus talisman chi with the supreme Yin moonlight to form a talisman pill that a cultivator could only consume one of these pills per major cultivation realm to achieve a breakthrough in their cultivation. The extent of its effectiveness hinges on the talisman chi in the pill. It could work wonders on even cultivators of the Foundation Establishment or Purple Mansion realms. Consuming this pill also secretly left a talisman seal in the host's Shenyang mansion, enhancing the speed of absorbing spiritual chi. When the host died, all their essence chi would then be transformed into talisman chi and returned to the mirror. Although the efficiency of the talisman pill was not nearly as high as that of profound pearls or talisman pearls, it could still extract 2 to 3/10 of the cultivator's cultivation. However, because the Li family was weak back then, this secret technique was never utilized. Not until today, when it can finally be put to good use. It would be best to condense a few more of these talisman pills to greatly accelerate the speed of mana enhancement. If they could be circulated in the market for cultivators of the Foundation Establishment realm and Purple Mansion realm to consume, and then reclaimed after their death, wouldn't that be wonderful? Pleased with the thought for a while, Lu Jiangxian then became cautious, murmuring, "But I wonder if the talisman pill could be recognized and attract enemies to our doorstep, causing trouble. Well, let's first use it for these few children of the Leaf family." With the secret technique activated, the mirror shone brightly. Bright moonlight surged out of it instantly, encircling and converging on the platform. It gathered into 3 glowing pills that had mysterious and intricate patterns on their surfaces, looking quite beautiful. After condensing the talisman pills, Lu Jiangxian returned to the mirror to continue his study of shamanic spells. Chapter 150. Imminent Calamity. As Li Xuanchuan's knife pierced into the head of the demon deer, its body quickly shriveled. Its pair of antlers also lost their dazzling luster, turning dry and pale. Upon finishing the sacrificial prayer and with the ceremony completed, Li Tongya swiftly concealed the corpse of the demon deer from sight, sweeping it into a storage pouch with a simple wave of his sleeve. Li Xianfeng straightened himself up, feeling the presence of 2 talisman chi in his mind. After a moment of contemplation, his spiritual sense settled on the one that was exuding a ferocious aura. Instantly, a brilliant red light filled Li Xuanfeng's Shenyang mansion, and he staggered back a few steps as if intoxicated, his complexion flushing red. The chi cultivation realm of the second heavenly layer surged within him uncontrollably, prompting him to step down from the platform. Descending from the platform, Li Tongya and the others were greeted by the bustling noise of the townsfolk resuming their activities. Li Tongya turned to Li Xianfeng and asked with a beaming smile, "I saw you acting a little weird just now. Have you received a talisman?" Hearing this, Li Xianxian and Li Xianling also turned their attention to Li Xianfeng, eager. Li Xuanfeng nodded. "Indeed, during the sacrifice, 2 talisman chi appeared in my mind, strength to move mountains and chasing clouds and moon. I chose the former and have now broken through to the 3rd heavenly layer of chi cultivation realm." He then explained the features of the talisman chi he chose. After wiping down his hands, he set aside his black bow and picked up a piece of stone from the ground. He flicked it tactfully with his finger, and it shattered into a million fragments that scattered on the ground. Pure physical strength, without employing mana, Li Tongya commented in awe and admiration. He picked up his black bow once more and examined it for a moment before speaking again. Now that you've attained the third heavenly layer of Qi cultivation realm, this Dharma artifact of the embryonic breathing realm is somewhat unbecoming. Our family has some savings these years. In a few months, you should visit the prefecture again and consult with a weaponsmith, then have a longbow custom made to suit your strength. Li Xianfeng, visibly pleased, pondered for a moment before a sheepish expression crossed his face. How could I? There are many uses for spirit stones at home. Brother Xian and Linger have not yet broken through the Qi cultivation realm. It'd be better to spend them on some medicinal pills or the like. My needs are not urgent. We can wait until they have achieved their breakthroughs. Hearing this, Li Xianling burst into laughter and replied, Brother Feng, why the formality among brothers? I've just recently advanced to the fourth stage of embryonic breathing realm. My cultivation needs further refinement before requiring any medicinal pills. Li Xianxian also smiled and said earnestly, I have already broken through to the Jade Capital stage. What's left is the grind to reach the peak of the embryonic breathing realm. You really needn't worry about us. Li Xianfeng only responded with a sheepish grin. Seeing the two of them like this, Li Tongya felt a great sense of contentment. He patted Li Xianfeng on the shoulder and said with a smile, It's good that you think this way. You've all grown up under my watch, growing up on the mountain like real brothers. There should be no barriers between you. Speak freely. Li Xianfeng nodded, visibly moved by these words. Li Tongya continued, You're both right about the medicinal pills not being urgent. Crafting a Dharma artifact takes time, so it's best to place an order now. With no choice, Li Xianfeng finally agreed to such generosity. After exchanging a few more words, the four of them went to the courtyard on Lijing Peak to give thanks before the mirror. Just as they entered the courtyard, a sweep of their spiritual sense revealed 3 luminous pills on the stone platform. Li Xianfeng raised an eyebrow and immediately exchanged a look with Li Tongya, who hurried into the stone chamber. Are those the talisman pills mentioned in the sacrificial ritual method? After paying their respects to the mirror, they stood up and carefully picked up the pills from the stone platform. Tongya pondered for a moment and then nodded. According to the sacrificial ritual method bestowed by the mirror, it can not only condense talisman qi, but also, if the incense is sufficient, condense it into talisman pills. An immortal cultivator can only consume 1 per major realm to achieve a breakthrough. The 3 talisman pills were translucent and luminously white, with mysterious patterns etched upon them. They were smooth and beautiful to the touch. Li Xianfeng carefully placed each one into a jade bottle, beaming with joy. Now we have medicinal pills for ourselves. Indeed, Li Tongya agreed as he nodded thoughtfully, then added, Since the talisman pills can help in achieving breakthroughs, and each major realm can only consume 1, it would be a waste to use it now. It's best used when breaking through from the peak of Qi cultivation realm to foundation establishment realm. Xianxian and Xianling can each use 1 when they break through the Qi cultivation realm. That's going to take a while before it happens, and though we won't have enough for both of our use, there will be plenty of opportunities for more rituals in the future, so there's no worry about not having them when needed. With joy, Li Xianxian and Li Xianling stored the pills, and Li Tongya went back to Meiche Peak to continue his seclusion. Li Xianfeng received a few spirit stones from Li Xianxian, then cheerfully headed toward Lixia Prefecture. The night shrouded Lijing Town, and the streets emptied. Only a few dim lights shone through the windows and onto the ground. As Lu Wanrong walked along the street, her servant girl remarked behind her, The Li family's ritual is really lively. We never had such festivals in the Lu family. We can't possibly compare ourselves to them. Lu Wanrong replied as shook her head, continuing her walk as she continued. The Li family's elder is in his prime, and Li Xianxian manages the Li family in an orderly manner. Have you ever seen any Li family disciples daring to bully others, abusing men and women? The Lu family's elder hasn't managed the family affairs for decades, and my senior clan brother loves luxury, a character of extravagance. In the rise and fall, the Lu family is far inferior. Having reached the front of her residence, she saw a man pacing back and forth, sweating profusely. But upon seeing them, his eyes lit up immediately, and he hurried over. Lu Wanrong recognized him as a junior clan brother from her time in the Lu family. A frown appeared on her face. Junior clan brother, what brings you here? The man from the Lu family wore a morose expression, his panic evident as he could only stammer out his words. The ancestor. The ancestor has passed away. What? Lu Wanrong looked as though she was struck by thunder, exclaiming in disbelief. Knowing he referred to Lu Cece, she quickly shook her head, asking softly, "When did this happen?" "Last night. I heard everything clearly." The ancestor sighed all night in his chair, saying, "The Lu family is doomed." By morning, he was lifeless. The man from the Lu family looked as if he found his pillar, whispering to her with a face full of sorrow. Brother Yinlu hurriedly buried the ancestor, and now he's secretly feasting on mountain. The ancestor once told me to seek you out when he dies, so I ran here overnight. Sister Roan, what should we do? Seeing his face covered in grime and exhaustion from crossing the Gully Road as a mortal to come all the way to the Li residence, undoubtedly having faced dangers along the way, Lu Wanrong felt deeply moved. Immediately feeling anxious, she said quickly, "Wait for me to go inside and write a letter back home. If this matter isn't handled well, it could spell disaster for our family."